how the government is like, yeah, we'll grow the population, it'll be great for our economy. And then they do a U-turn and they're like, we'll shrink the population, it'll be great for our economy. We're not even in 2025 and it's already looking like it's going to be a total train wreck. So we're going to get into why in this video, but there are a lot of things that are going to come to head in 2025. So first of all, let's talk about the public sector. The size of the public sector as a percentage of the economy is absolutely insane now. It's over 20%. When you compare that to the UK around 17% and the US below 15%. That is absolutely crazy. So Canada's public sector, you can see here that it really rocketed during when? 2020, of course, the pandemic, the government came in, created a lot of jobs. Just think about how if a lot of these jobs disappeared, what's going to happen? And I think that definitely you're going to see more of a move to shrink the size of government, especially with the new government that will come in next year, towards the end of next year, likely anyway. So layoffs could be on the table for public servants. Here's everything you need to know. So we're going to get into this real quick, but this is actually starting to happen now. So the federal government is currently looking for ways to tighten its budget and curb the size of the public service. In order to do that, it's undertaking a multi-billion-dollar spending review. I wonder how much that review is going to cost. The government is aiming to find and refocus $15.8 billion in savings by 2027 and 2028 and $4.8 billion per year thereafter. While it first looked at reducing organizations' spending on consulting and travel, departments and agencies are now being asked to find additional savings. So it's only a matter of time before it's going to go to people hitting the chopping block, because a lot of this government spending is to do with the increase in the size of government. But that's very tricky and difficult to do whilst your economy is essentially propped up by the government expanding. So, I mean, talk about the tide going out and seeing everybody swimming naked. That's exactly what is going to happen if this happens. And get this year, we have millions of visas that are expiring. So obviously, this is not only going to have a huge impact on the economy and the labor market, particularly on those low-skilled, low-wage jobs, it has the impact to actually increase inflation. And at the same time, whilst all of that is going on, if you've got lots of people that are leaving, that's going to mean that rents are coming down. And what is that going to mean for the housing market, or the housing bubble is what I should say. So Canada will see nearly 5 million visas expire by the end of next year. Canada has recently announced a complete change in direction for population growth. Policymakers spent the past few years explaining that record immigration growth will lead to an economic boom, and the complete opposite has obviously happened. We know this on this channel. Suddenly, with an election scheduled within the next year, they began to explain the exact opposite. Planned degrowth is now touted as accomplishing similar goals. It's just absolutely hilarious how the government is like, yeah, we'll grow the population, it'll be great for our economy. And then they do a U-turn and they're like, we'll shrink the population, it'll be great for our economy. Yeah, okay. So the current plan to accomplish this goal revolves around shrinking the visa pool, primarily for temporary residents. It sounds logical, and until one realizes just how many visas are expiring soon. So Government of Canada data shows a whopping 4.9 million visas expire between December 2024 and December 2025. So that would have a huge impact on the economy. I don't care if you're pro-immigration or you're anti-immigration, that will have a massive impact on the economy, and not in a good way. I mean, talk about ripping a band-aid off on a bullet wound. That's essentially what Canada would be doing. Now, that might actually be the right thing to do long term, but that will come with a lot of short-term pain, as it goes with any long-term good decision. A lot of short-term pain for that long-term growth. So it's very interesting that they're now going down that road. And what is that going to mean? And the thing is, it just gets even better, guys. So this article, I know it's slightly off the screen here, but I'll just read it to you. More than 1 million Canadian mortgages are up for renewal in 2025. Is your Ontario home one of them? So the new year is just around the corner, and 1.2 million mortgage holders in Canada, that means it's almost time for them to renew their home loans. So this comes data from the CMHC, and with interest rates where they are right now, I mean, let's pull this chart out and see actually where we are. So you have to go all the way back to 2006. That's when interest rates were this high, and obviously the debt levels were substantially less back in 2006. So what sort of impact do you expect that this is going to have on the housing market and the economy when you've got this many people renewing their mortgage? Now, what'll be really interesting, and we're going to cover it on this channel, is obviously the Bank of Canada is coming out with their rate announcements, likely going to be 50 basis points, I believe, at this point. So when they cut by 50 basis points, obviously this is going to go down to what? 3.25%. And that's going to be a lot less. But still, if you look at where it was in 2014, for example, when the economy was particularly weak back then, 2010, it was around 1%. So you're still nowhere near where probably the mainstream media, most mainstream economists would believe interest rates need to be in order to get some stimulation, a stimulative effect. And I don't even think it works like that. I think most of the economics that people are taught in university is totally broken. Even Hilliard spoke about this in the interview, and I'll link that interview at the end of this video. But he spoke about this and said how he went and studied economics. He ended up dropping out because he realized what a load of garbage it essentially was. So you've got this happening, and this is not going to be good. And the thing is, guys, when you look at what's going on in the housing market right now, this is another one posted by Shazzy, Brampton Blowout. It reads $420,000 loss on a power of sale. So when did this guy buy? Oh yeah, 2022. And that's what hit the market and sold in 2024 for 1.28 million. When they bought in 2022, right at the peak of the market, 1.8 million. So I highly recommend you go follow Shazzy for these type of housing market updates. He's just such a great guy. But that comes out to a 28.88% loss when you go from 1.8 to 1.28. So with inflation, you're talking again like a 50% loss. And we're going through like the private lenders, the MICs right now. Those are the ones that are taking on these properties. Those are the ones that you're seeing people default and lose their homes on or lose their rental properties on. But this is gonna go and filter through to the mainstream lenders, TD Bank, RBC, Scotiabank, CIBC, BMO, all these lenders. To concentrated lending space in Canada, they're going to be impacted, and they already are being impacted because you're seeing the growth of this just go up and up and up. And with what I just discussed, Shazzy also put this out, which I think is worth noting, because when you look at what is going on in some of these Facebook groups, basically this reads, hey folks, I'm at the point where rent doesn't equal mortgage and I'm losing money per month due to interest rates and increase in maintenance fees. Any advice? Am I allowed to increase more than the yearly percentage rate? This is obviously happening in BC or Ontario, where they can only increase the rent by a certain amount. But if people are losing money at this point in the rental market, and then you've got potentially millions of visas expiring and people that are going to have to leave, I mean, truth be told, we know that a lot of these people aren't going to leave, and they're just going to continue to be in the country in basically the underground economy, because unfortunately that's what just happens. But obviously with millions of people potentially leaving the workforce, the low skilled, low paid workforce, which nobody can afford to work in, because these people coming in, guess what? They were living in third world living conditions. Canadians think that third world living conditions are unacceptable and don't want to live in them. So they don't want to get paid those wages. They can't afford to be paid those wages. What's going to happen to wages? They're going to go up. And what sort of impact is that going to have on prices when you've got an oligarchy for everything? I mean, it's just not going to be good. The recipe looks absolutely really awful for 2025. You got all these things coming to head and an election. And I know a lot of people are going to get Pierre euphoria when that election eventually happens and he wins, just like we had with Trump. And I would urge you to kind of stay away from all that and just think about what they actually do. We want to actually see the evidence and the proof of what they actually achieve and what they actually do versus all the things that they say. I mean, Trudeau was a leftist populist, and now you've got like a center right or centrist conservative populist that's coming in. So you're going to expect a lot of promises. Obviously, we know Pierre changes his mind wherever the political winds blow. Just take it, for example, with the Freedom Convoy and what he did there. He did a U-turn right there. For me, integrity is everything. None of these politicians that are up and coming and are standing have any sort of integrity whatsoever. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't vote, but it just means that you have to vote for the least worst candidate, which is always the case. But I really wish that we had somebody who was more up and coming, kind of like the Reform Party in the UK. But it just seems to be that you need decades of pain in order to get to that point. And still, they're not even there right now. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next 12, 24 months. So anyway, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend that you check out this video here. If you're looking for a VPN, want to help protect your privacy and help out the channel at the same time, use the VPN that I use, expressvpn.com/marketmania. You can click here or go to the link in the description, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.